Welcome to Desert Wanderers, produced by Salt and Light Radio. If you're new here, we bridge the gap between you and the person in the pew next to you. I will be interviewing priests, religious, and laity in our local Boise diocese, asking questions that'll help you navigate your vocation and help build community wherever you are with whatever resources you may have. Let's build the city of God together. Welcome, Father Tim. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Good.
I've been so excited about this series. We've had a couple of other priests on already talking about some of the others sins, but we are doing a weekly series where the 7 deadly sins, we're talking about one per week, and its remedy. And today we're talking about sloth.
Yes.
I'm very excited.
The slowest sin. No.
Yes, the slowest sin.
Yeah.
But you and I talked about this a little bit offline, and it's one of the sins that just doesn't really get talked about too much. I think sometimes the other ones are so loud.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
And they're flashier.
Yes.
And it's not as kind of alluring as a sin. You know what I mean?
Right.
That it oftentimes doesn't, it doesn't get talked about. It's like a little one in the background.
Yeah, you know when you're angry, but you might not even know when you're being slothful. So it's possible.
I've wondered about this. So I actually had I listened to a podcast with Father Ripperger, and he was talking about sometimes once we get past those really loud sins, I feel like lust, anger, pride, jealousy, they're pretty loud.
They can be.
Yeah, they can be. But and what he was saying is sometimes people don't even know what sins they actually have because they kind of they're not like big mortal sins necessarily, right? Or if they are, they're unaware of them. And so I think that's kind of what brought the series to light a little bit is we all probably struggle with one of these and we think that we're doing all right, but really we're not.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I'm very excited to have you on. I'm excited to talk about sloth. So.
Yeah. It tends to be, I think, to concur with Father Ripperger on that, it's like an undercurrent sin for a lot of people. It's a sin driving other more obvious sins for a good many.
Yeah, and I think he actually even used the word root of your sin a little bit, basically the idea of there's something underneath that you might not have uncovered
you didn't even
yet.
know it was there. Yeah.
I when I said that, I thought about being an archaeologist. Yeah. This series, we're going to make you an archaeologist about your soul.
Right. Yeah, no, that's important. There's layers for sure.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
It also goes into this idea of for some reason it's coming to me as your attachments. Sometimes they talk about when you're dealing with your prayer life or your spiritual life. There's all these things that kind of can take preference, and then as you strip yourself away to open yourself up more to Christ, and one of the last things is your attachment search. Usually your love for your spouse or the love for your children or
the things that are good in and of themselves.
Yeah. And I also feel it's kind of that. This is a layer maybe above attachments that it's you kind of have to peel these things away to understand where you really have to give yourself to Christ.
Yes.
Okay. Well, to start off then, what is sloth? What is the sin of sloth?
It's a great question. Yeah. And it's, it's very confusing because it's not, it's there's an animal. So what's that all about? But it's funny that I don't know what the connection there is. They're slow, but so it's not a word we use much to begin with, right? So it's important to recognize that, unlike say anger or wrath, something like that. Sloth says that sometimes it's called sloth, and I think that's mostly just to distinguish it. It's like ant and aunt, that thing. But sloth or sloth, another word used for it, kind of the more Greek root, is acedia. Okay, so that's the same thing. Acedia and sloth are the same thing. Is there a different word that would be a better word to use in our modern language to determine or to use for sloth? Not, as we'll get into, not one that captures the full range of meaning, actually, because I'll get into this. It's not just laziness. That's probably the closest parallel that we just go to in our modern English and say, oh, I'm being slothful, I'm being lazy, right? And there's certainly, that's a component of it. But the actual, the full term that's given to us by the church, kind of what it encompasses is so much more than just laziness. As we'll see, it can also be overactivity. So sloth is not just laziness. Some people are slothful who are extremely active. They're slothful because they're extremely active. Mm-hmm. So, so basically what is sloth? And I've just talked all around it. I'm going to give you a double quotation, meaning one guy quoting another guy, and they're both doctors of the church. So St. Thomas Aquinas, quoting St. John Damascene, says, quote, he has two quotations actually, quote, an oppressive sorrow that so weighs upon the mind that he wants to do nothing. That's the first one we get. And then the second one is maybe kind of more what we're used to, sluggishness of the mind which neglects to begin good. Okay, so we see there's actually kind of two components. The first is there's like a sorrowful component, which I don't even know if a lot of people dig into that part. Like I have a sorrow that I'm supposed to do this thing that's good for me, right? Like it's a very subtle sadness as opposed to just like here I am, poor me, like it's not that most of the time. It's like, I could pray. Or I could watch TV. I'm going to watch TV. And it's like, what there's like a sadness about prayer. Like prayer would be hard. That's basically what it comes down to. It's not like this deep, like, woe is me. Although as we will see, it can turn into that. It can turn into that. That's self-pity. And that is a form of sloth, but it's not, it's a subtle sadness. And then the other thing is kind of what we more think of sluggishness, right? Sluggishness of the mind, which neglects to do good, right? So we see that, and I think it's really important to make a distinction here, really, really important, because feeling sluggish is not a sin. Feeling sad is not a sin. A lot of people, they misunderstand some of these very technical words that we see in Latin and Greek patristic literature or in the Middle Ages. This word passion comes up. And they talk about how the passions are bad, especially in the Greek tradition, Greek-speaking tradition. And we go, well, I feel this. I'm feeling that passion, right? Which is like, I feel the laziness, so to speak, within me. But that's not in and of itself a sin. That's just what it is to be human, right? So we all feel all kinds of things all the time. But it's what you do. Right, so you can feel like I don't want to do it, but if you go do it, that's not slothful. That's just the passion, or even sometimes it's called a pre-passion, right? Like it's getting there. So sloth is not just feeling tired. It's not feeling sad. It's not feeling sluggish. That happens to all of us. It's acting or not acting on the sluggishness, giving into the sadness, right? And so it becomes sinful when it becomes the basis of our actions or lack of action, as we'll see. And so two ways in which St. Thomas says that this manifests: when we don't even want to do what is good, right, or just. We don't even want to do what's good, right, or just. Or we want to do it, but we just don't. Mm-hmm. All right, so we don't even want to. I don't even want to try. Like it's not worth it. Or I know that's good for me, but not going to make it. Whatever.
Yeah.
So is that kind of like that's a richer version of sloth than most of us are used to getting?
I think that's brilliant. And I think I've known that sloth has been one of my sins for a while. And I want to really ask you and continue on. One of the things you said is like doing too much is a part of sloth. So I guess but before we get there, what makes sloth one of the 7 deadly sins? Like, why is it above other sins? Right.
Well, I mean, the 7 deadly sins are basically, I would argue, and I think the doctors of the church would argue that they're more categorizations of every type of sin possible, and that the height of every one of those categories is deadly or mortal. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, like, it can be venial, right? Like, it's not necessarily deadly. Like to be lazy, like let's give a venial example of sloth. Just spending way too much time on your phone, right? Scrolling. That's not good, right? I don't know at what point it becomes sinful, right? But certainly at a certain point it does.
Right.
Maybe when you're not accomplishing other things you need to be doing, or when you just know you're more likely to take in things that are not good for you, or you realize the stuff you're reading is garbage, the stuff you're reading is leading you into anger, right? all these different ways. So you can see anxiety. You can see how it's like a gateway drug, so to speak. Right. Because it's almost always leading you to something else.
The thing with social media, to kind of like pinpoint this, is Father Sintra had an interview with this guy named Ken, and he talks about in that podcast where they're talking about the family, and he said, you know, the devil, his job should be hard. It should be that it's hard to infiltrate families, infiltrate the person. It should be hard. But he said what we've done with technology is basically say, like, here's the gate and it's unlocked. Like, have fun. Like,
it can be that way.
And then basically telling your kids, if you're not protecting him, just basically saying, like, here you are, here's the wolves, you know.
I think that I'm just going to go, I don't say things this strongly very often, but I think it is so foolish to give a smartphone to a child.
Yeah.
Incredibly foolish.
I think that's not even, I don't even think that's controversial anymore. I think they've,
well, but I see it all the time. I mean, most kids have one. Anyway, that's getting off topic, but
no, but it's this idea again, going back into how it feeds into sloth, right? Is that there's some really good stuff that you can find on the internet. And I think this is a point that a lot of Catholics have right now, is like, when does the good outweigh the bad, and like what point? And that's for everyone to decide for themselves. But I can see how it could be something venial and a way to like kind of drain your mind or like relax for a little bit into something more serious, and how that kind of grows. Yeah, I definitely could see that. Yeah,
and it would become mortal when you start when you're okay. So like the classic example would be like, I didn't go to mass this weekend because I didn't feel like it.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like it. That's literally the reason that's given. Right. And it makes sense. I'm not like, oh my gosh, how could you? It's like, no, I get it. You're dealing with some hardcore sloth. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's when it becomes deadly, so to speak. Right. Or you didn't take care of your family in a basic way. Right. Or we can get into this, but I didn't feel like going to mass. Why? Because, you know, I binge watched all this stuff. Here's the other version of sloth. Right. Here's the one that we don't talk about. Well, I had 3 sports practices. I had to volunteer here. I had to do this. I just don't have time for mass, Father. It's like, it sounds like you have a deadly addiction to sloth, is what it sounds like. That's like the straightforward answer. Is like, you are so busy with your own preoccupations that you don't have time for God at all. And
I think, you know,
that's serious.
I think I'm glad that you point out that that's serious, because I think it happens so much. I don't know if it's just because of our current culture and the things that you know, we used to live up until 30 years ago, right? Yeah. We didn't really have someone attached to our pockets. And I know, I'm sorry to bring up the whole cell phone things again, but
it's a thing. Yeah.
But I think for myself, it feels like you always have to be on. You're always having to respond to emails. You always have to be keeping up with trends. And now it's not just like someone working in that field, but it's everyone is you know. Always able to contact you.
Yes.
And it almost creates, in myself, this is what I've noticed, is it always feels like my time is not my own, and that there are other responsibilities that I must have, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I started laughing earlier when you were describing sloth, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. Yeah. Because, you know, I have the kids to like think about and their needs and everything they have. Yeah. And then I have the needs of the house, and then I also work part-time. And so it seems like half the time I want to pray, and I'm like, you know, how nice would it be to sit down to a cup of coffee in the morning and say the Divine Mercy Chaplet, or to sing the hours, right? Listen to Sing the Hours, and just spend that time. Like, it would be so nice, but I don't have time for that. Like, all of my time is, and then at the end of the day, when I'm tired, what do? I don't pray. I sit on my phone
and watch something.
Something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not even connecting. And this is really bad, but I'm admitting it. And it's like, sometimes my husband and I are so exhausted that we just, do you want to watch something together, or do you want to be like separate in whatever we're doing? But we're not even like cultivating a deepness in our exhaustion. Right. In our exhaustion.
Be tired together, right? Yeah.
That's basically
do
what we have.
Do nothing together, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is it bad? No, but I think it's a common thing, and people I didn't even realize that's what it meant by like sloth. I never heard of it said as like an overexertion.
It can be. I would it can be that. Here's another way of thinking of sloth, though, that's more encouraging, which I like, which is, well, the sloth is not wanting the greatness that God wants for you. That's what makes it a sin. So if you think about it the opposite way, it's like, I'm embracing the greatness that God wants for me, then it's like cool.
Yeah.
Right. It's like when that's why that makes you more willing to face the hardship rather than just like, just be better and like, be better. That's not actually that effective. It's really not. If you could be better, you would.
See, but as someone that I think has kind of dealt with this, my question is sometimes I get like complacent because I hear someone saying, oh, but you are living out your vocation as a mother. Yeah. Like you are giving your time to your children, and that's good. And like, or hearing Father Mike Schmitz, he even said like, you know what? Sometimes like for years you might not get anything out of Mass, but it's important that you're there and you're bringing your kids, right? And those, I think those are good things to hear. But I think as someone who is more inclined to sloth, I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Yeah, you gotta watch out for that. Yeah, for sure. And then I'm like considering like, well, am I doing something good enough? Like, is my relationship with God good enough, or am I negating that but thinking I'm doing a good job just because I'm doing the things that I should be? I'm checking off the boxes where I should, but maybe my relationship isn't as deep. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one of the two things I kind of mentioned this at the beginning. So St. Thomas and St. John Damascene mentioned that it's opposed to two primary things. One is a gift or a fruit of the Holy Spirit, and one is a theological virtue. The theological virtue that sloth is opposed to is love, is charity. And so it's directly opposed to embracing greater love for God. So insofar as, it sounds like what you described to me sounds like a mixture of things. It sounds like insofar as you're taking care of your kids and you feel scatterbrained and you're going to Mass and you're not getting anything out of it because you're just taking care of your family, that's all good, right? Like I don't want you to, like, I wish you could do both at once, right? But you're doing what's being asked of you. It's when you're describing that you're like, I'm just going to my phone. That's the part that's not good, right? Yeah. So just to distinguish, like being scatterbrained is neither here. It's neither. It's neutral, right? Because some things force us to be scatterbrained because we're embracing what we're supposed to be doing. And that happens to me too. Like I'm talking to like 9 million people after Mass and they're all asking me different things and I don't know half the answers. And like, there's a crisis over here and like, it's just chaotic, right? And I'm supposed to be there. I'm supposed to not supposed to feel scatterbrained, but like that's a pretty natural human reaction. But if I feel scatterbrained because I'm just, like whatever, or I'm just like listening to podcasts about stupid stuff all the time, it's like pseudo-spiritual, but not really spiritual.
Right.
That's my fault.
Something I never thought about when you're explaining that. Do you ever feel like Mass after Mass, like when people are coming out of the church, does it ever feel like you're a, what do they call them? Like a military medical aid, being like
a medic,
like what I mean, like this one can wait a little bit, this one like needs more attention like right now, and like sorting people out
somewhat. Maybe not so distinctly because it's so, it's not usually, it's nothing so crisis, it's not such a crisis in that time, but occasionally there is. You have to do a little sorting. Yeah, you do. Yeah,
I definitely have been the person that's like, I missed confession this week and I went to Mass and I didn't receive, so I'm just gonna like pull the priest over and be like, hey, can you like do confession really quick?
And you try to if you can, right? Absolutely. So
I never actually thought about that, but the priests are pretty popular after Mass, so
that's probably one of the more chaotic times I have. Right, so it's not always like that, but that's when I get scatterbrained. And just to your point, to bring it back, like scatterbrained is that's life, right? And some of us have vocations and or jobs that cause us to be scatterbrained a lot more than others. But the sloth, that's not sloth one way or the other. It's just neutral. So it's two different things. Yeah.
Well, so in the spiritual life, how does sloth? Actually, I feel like we already answered that, so I'm not going to answer that. Or I'm not going to ask you that question. Okay. What I am going to ask you, which I think is important, is so when it comes to these types of like 7 deadly sins, but specifically we're talking about sloth. What is the importance of having a spiritual advisor then for this? Because I think that it can kind of be nuanced, like what we talked about. Because, part of it is, at least for me, and I'm hoping this is helping someone, is it's like sometimes I'm like, I'm just tired. And just don't want to. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel, it's not going to give that dopamine hit that, like, my body really wants to crave, instead of, like, doing something even better, which would be, like, either praying or going to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, actually going to sleep would be better than staying up and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, how important is it when we talk about these types of sins? Is it to have a spiritual advisor?
Yeah.
And what should someone kind of do to, like, navigate that?
Well, certainly. I mean, yeah, if you can get a spiritual advisor, I think last time I was here, we talked about this. Unfortunately, they're in rare supply.
Yeah,
I mean, if you can get one, great, and do it. And, like, hopefully he's good or she's good, and they're able to help you with that, and they'll know some things to help you, and they'll just be able to cater more to, like, what in your life is actually sloth and what is not, what is just difficulty, and right. And they'll be able to parse that out, so that, and the benefit of that is you'll stop. This does happen, is sometimes you think it's sloth and it's not, and you're just, like, beating yourself up, and that's actually not good. So they'll be able to tell you, like, no, it's okay to take it easy there. This is sloth, so you got to watch out for this. But in what can help us with sloth when you don't have a spiritual director is accountability partners, you know, and that works. Like, you don't necessarily have to have an accountability or a spiritual director to be virtuous in the Christian life. Saint Teresa of Lisieux talks about this. She didn't have one for long periods of time. So you always have the Holy Spirit, and So I don't know. I mean, what the spiritual director would provide would be, like, a more catered, like, understanding of yourself.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's not critically necessary, though, which is actually good news.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how would someone start to identify the sin of sloth in their own life? So say, like, they can't get a spiritual advisor. Yeah. And so, like, what kind of steps, like, is there something they should walk through in themselves to say, like, you know, maybe this is an underlying, like, hidden sin that I haven't realized. Yeah. What kind of steps or what kind of questions might they be able to ask themselves about?
Like, it basically, do I struggle with this sin? Yeah. Well, the first one, it's the, as we talked about, it's the gateway drug, so to speak. So some things to look for that you might have to address before you can get to sloth. One is self-pity. And I don't listen to Father Mike Schmitz that much, but I really like him. It's not because I don't like him. I just don't get around to him as much. But he had one of the best things on self-pity I've ever seen. And it's ruthless. You know, he's normally like Mr. Nice, you know, and all these things, but which is great. But he did one on self-pity. He said, you are not ever allowed to feel self-pity. Ever. You should never, ever give yourself permission to feel self-pity. And I was like, whoa, that's like not... Like, I was like, what about like 5%? And in the video, he just says, never. You never have permission to feel self-pity. What you do have permission to feel is sadness. Real, legit sadness.
What's the difference between pity
self-pity
and sadness?
Self-pity is wallowing. And it's woe is me and my life is so hard, right? Sadness comes and it passes, right? And it's related to something definite, right? That you can point to. Yeah. Right? And it can lead into self-pity, right? And there's a gradation, so it's not always so clear-cut. But sadness, you express it and you're done, right? But self-pity has no end. It has no end. You can feel self-pity till the end of time, right? And actually, people in hell do, is what the great saints say. And so, oh, woe is me, my life is so hard. That helps you not whatsoever. Not whatsoever. Yeah. And so... Self-pity is one, if you have self-pity, which we all do. All of us have the tendency towards self-pity, some less than others, but we all have it. That's a very universal thing. You begin just battling that tooth and nail. You say, nope, I don't give myself permission to feel that.
But how do you even get to the point where you can say that? Because obviously, even if you just say, no, you know, because sometimes I hear, I feel like I have a pretty good job of being like, sometimes I can just say, that's not like, nope, not even going there, and my brain can just cut it off. Yeah. But I don't think everyone can do that.
No. And it doesn't. So it begins with an act of the will that just feels totally hollow and empty. You just begin with this. I'm feeling like boatloads of self-pity right now. And that, you know, I in the name of Jesus, I revoke this. I revoke this permission to feel self-pity. And then you still feel exactly the same, right? You're like, that did nothing.
Yeah.
But you just trust that it's working.
Do you just say it over and over
and
over
and over? You do it over and over and over until, and if you keep doing it, if you keep making an act of the will against self-pity, eventually, after like maybe a month of like continually doing that, you will see a significant decrease.
So I do have a question that kind of goes back into this idea of sloth again, when it's the I don't want to. How do you get past the I don't want to when it's an act of will, when you don't have any will for that thing?
Yeah.
Like, how do you even make the jump? It almost feels like it's like a, sorry, not impossible. I was actually going to use a different word, but like an oxymoron kind of.
Yeah. It's like, the whole point is I don't feel like doing it. I can't ask.
Do it?
I don't feel like asking for the help to do it, because that's the point, is I don't feel like doing it.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that gets into like the dissection of the human being spiritually. You are not determined by your emotions. Your emotions are helpful, good, made by God. They're supposed to be gasoline. They're supposed to be power behind your will. Your will and your intellect are stronger than your emotions. Most of us don't know that. We think, because our emotions are so strong, that okay, that's what determines how I act. They do not determine how you act. That's just a spiritual truth. They help you. We should feel emotions. We shouldn't suppress them. But ideally, a well-ordered person, your emotions are going to be propulsion for your will and your intellect. And at the beginning, it's going to feel like you're working against them. But as you make acts of the will, they will begin to work in concert. And so, like, I guess what it boils down to is remembering that that your intellect and your will were created to be stronger.
Does this go into having an accountability partner too a little bit? Because I'm thinking for myself, I don't really do anything unless I have something keeping me accountable. Right?
It tremendously helps. A lot of people. Yes, I'm a huge fan, huge advocate. You know, I recommend it. It's most common with, like, I would say, where is it most common? Like the sins of the flesh, so lust and gluttony, especially like people who are tempted to drink, right? That's how all these 12-step programs are built. Yeah. They're all built on accountability, and they work. Those programs work. People forget that. They're not like, they've been around for like nearly 100 years now because they work. And there's millions of people who've worked the 12 steps to success.
I don't know this as well as some other people in my family, but they have talked about how the guy that started the 12 steps, I think that he either became Catholic and then the group changed or something.
Yeah. But there's definitely some Catholic roots there. I forget. There's a priest at the beginning. There was a nun at the beginning. I don't remember how involved they were, but it's totally compatible with the faith. Right. Just in case anyone has any questions about that, it's totally compatible with the faith.
Yeah. And so, at least the person I'm thinking of, it's actually what brought them back into the church after they had left, was going through a 12-step program and being like, wow, this actually reminds me a lot of how I grew up. Right. So, so one of them was self-pity. So identify it in yourself. You gotta get rid of that. You just gotta ruthlessly. And that's the one you have to be the most ruthless on, because it feels like we're so entitled to it. Yeah. It feels so deserved. I'm entitled to this. I'm allowed. No, you're not. Yeah. Okay. It's that simple. And if you give yourself 1%, you say, I'm allowed to feel this 1% of the time, then it will always be the 1% of the time. Gotcha. So you just got to cut it off. Just fight it ruthlessly. Okay. So what else would be another sign that you might be dealing with us as one of yours? Also very common is lust, right? And so it's and this is even in the Bible with King David. It's very clear, the connection. I forget, we just went through it not that long ago. But is it 2 Kings? Anyway, it's or maybe it was 2 Samuel. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's it's in there where it talks about David and Bathsheba, that whole story. And it makes a very clear connection between David didn't go out to battle. He should have been out with his troops, and then this happened. Yeah. And so for a lot of people struggling with lust, a lot of people who struggle with lust also struggle with sloth. They're pretty tied together. So it's the same with, because you had earlier said lust and gluttony. Is it the same with gluttony too? Gluttony and sloth? Yeah, I'm trying to think of. Actually, it does make that connection. Now that I think about it, because was it Proverbs 19:15? It says this:
Slothfulness casts into a deep sleep, and an idle person will suffer hunger. So that's more like not eating well, right? That's kind of speaking to laziness. But yeah, I think they can be connected, because it's like one of the things we're trying to treat with sloth is, boredom, right? That's one of the things we have to fight as human beings.
Really quick on boredom. So I've actually seen this as a trend where people are just like going out into the wilderness, like just in a field, sitting in a seat for an hour and filming themselves, just being like, I'm just fighting boredom. Yeah. Because I don't know how to be bored anymore. Yeah.
No, I actually like that. That's the first time I've heard of that. But I mean, we do have to learn how to be bored, because that's when we begin, when we sink into the silence, and when we sink into like, the only place your mind will go after a while is self-reflection. It's the only place it has left. And that's good for you. Okay. And so what sloth can do in our modern age is it's constantly taking us away from ourselves. We're always looking at something. We're never self-reflective. Self-reflection is good. It leads to examination of conscience. It leads to asking the big questions, right? Mm-hmm. How come I can't sit? I think it was Pascal who said, like, he talks to this. He says, one of the hardest things for a human being to do is to sit in a room by himself. Yeah. And do nothing. Absolutely. It's like absolute torture. Yeah. And it just reveals to you who you really are, is what it does, right? So I think that's the filming themselves, I don't know why they have to film themselves.
I think the whole point is just to be like, look how hard they speed it up. Yeah. So it's like an hour and a minute, right? And then they like, the whole idea is like, look how much I fidget in this hour. Like, look how hard it is for me to struggle. Like, I wonder what it would be like for you to do it. It's kind of like a call, like, we have to be able to be bored again, and we're not. Yeah,
I agree with that.
You see how hard it is to be bored.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. That makes sense to me. And I think that's basically what the Desert Fathers were doing. I think that they battled sloth intensely because they are basically doing that all the time, every day. Like they had their little job that they set out for themselves. And they had like, they had to go run their errands, and like they would make baskets and things. They would make baskets and then sometimes just throw them away, just to give themselves something to like to do. And but in a good way that was like meditative.
Do you think that doing something with your hands is helpful in meditation? And this is a kind of a tangent, but sometimes I feel like just having a little bit of a fidget sometimes helps me think about things. It
can be. It can cut either way. I mean, for really? Some people, so? it's taking them away. Like they're not thinking as much. But it can be very good for you, especially if you've been thinking a lot. If you're in your head too much, that can be really good for you. Like doing laundry is like or doing the dishes or whatever, without any kind of background noise. It can be really good for you when you've been real cerebral for a long time.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So, yeah.
Okay, and so are there any other ways that like a beginner can start to like say, maybe this is something I struggle with? So the first one again was self pity. Yeah. And then the second one we talked about was oh my goodness,
lust.
Lust. And that's kind of where we were leaving off, is like, does gluttony fit in that?
Yeah.
But lust.
Those two, if you battle the one, you're battling the other. Honestly,
they're pretty tied.
They're very tied. Yeah, for most people, not everyone, but most people. Like if you're fighting those two together, it's very likely you both will go down together.
Gotcha.
So
okay, so you have self-pity, lust, gluttony, kind of, and then what would be another? Is there anything else, or are those like basically the main ways it manifests, or the main other things you would have to be dealing with?
You know what? Speaking of gluttony, I just thought of the Desert Fathers called sloth the noonday devil. The noonday devil. And it's not like just a cool nickname. They thought that the spirits of sloth attacked in the middle of the day. They really thought that. And think about that. It makes so much sense, because like, when's the time of the day you feel least like you want to do anything?
2:00.
Yes.
3:00.
Exactly.
4:00. Somewhere
like
right
the
in the middle
doldrums,
of the
they call them 2 to 5, right?
Take a nap. That's when a lot of people do take naps.
Siesta is a thing, right?
Yeah.
And actually some cultures, I think that's kind of brilliant. But they called it the noonday devil. And so what did they recommend as a combat for that? They said, and this works, don't eat a heavy lunch.
Yeah.
So you're battling gluttony and sloth at the same time. If you eat a light lunch, if you fast, God forbid you fast, right? But you fast, you will check your alertness in the middle of the day if you fast or if you eat a light lunch. You will see that you are more awake.
I think you're right, though. Yeah. Most of the time, I feel like I'm too busy. When I'm too busy for lunch, I usually go straight till dinner because I'm like, I got stuff to do. Like,
are you more awake or less awake?
Usually more, like if I'm busy and I don't eat lunch, I'm pretty awake. I'm getting things done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, as I said, people are different. But for me, I do notice that when I eat a lighter lunch,
think about how glucose works, right? Your glucose, if you're eating a big lunch, especially if it's carb heavy, right?
Yeah, carbs especially, yes.
You're going to just go, you know what I mean?
Exactly, and that's what happens. Yeah. That's what happens. So, yeah, it is tied to all those. So if you're fighting all those things, then you're fighting sloth, right?
Okay.
That's an indirect way of fighting sloth is if you're fighting all those things.
Gotcha.
You know?
So, okay, so let's talk about what the primary remedy to sloth is then.
Yeah.
Because we've talked kind of like, okay, now we've kind of identifying it. We can take some time to meditate and have time by ourselves, right? Like we've been talking about, to kind of see these really the things that I'm struggling with. And if they are, what is the next step forward? What is the primary remedy? Yeah.
So we talked about there's the accountability. That's going to help. We talked about, obviously, prayer is going to help. That goes without saying. But one thing that probably most of us don't do, very few of us do, is what the Desert Fathers did, who were the masters of combating this, is they memorized scripture verses that had to do with working hard. Oh. So I actually took a list of quotes. Evagrius is not someone most people have heard of. He had a few weird ideas, so he didn't make the saint. He didn't make saint qualification. He didn't make, but he's still like Origen. He's considered one of those people that's like generally good, like 75 to 90% good, but he had some wonky ideas here and there. Yeah. So Evagrius, really, really good. High recommend with a few exceptions. Okay,
right.
But he's considered the master of Bible verses that contradict particular. He has one for every single vice. He has a whole book called in English, Talking Back. And so this is some of the verses he gave for sloth, actually. So they would say this to themselves whenever they feel the temptation, okay? So this Genesis 3:19, by the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, right? So they would just say that over and over. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread. And you could keep going, right? Until you return to the earth from which you are taken. For you are earth, and to earth you shall return, right? So you're sitting there on your phone, you just say, you are earth, and to earth you shall return. Yeah. I don't want to, my life is short. I got to go do something, right?
Yeah.
So they had this ready, or hope in the Lord and do kindness, dwell on the land, and you will be fed with its wealth. All right, that's Psalm 36:3. I waited patiently for the Lord, and he attended to me and listened to my supplication, 39:2. That has more to do with, we haven't touched about this as much, but the sadness portion of sloth. Or this, I like this one, Psalm 102:15. As for a human being, his days are like grass, as a flower of the field, so will he flourish. So basically, I'm like grass. I better get going. All right. So there's more. There's stuff from Jeremiah. So anyway, those are a few of the verses. He has a whole longer list.
Yeah. Do you think you could name at least the verses so that I could put them in the description?
Yes. So Genesis 3:19, Psalm 36:3, Psalm 39:2, Psalm 102:15, and Jeremiah 38:16 and 17, which is longer.
Awesome.
So, but even if you don't even have to take the whole quote, for your earth and to earth you shall return. Whew, that gets you motivated, right? Like, I'm gonna die someday. Like, I better do it now, So
okay, and so so we've kind of talked about maybe saying some scripture. Is there anything else that you do you want to go back, because you had mentioned we hadn't talked about the sorrow? Is there anything you want to touch on specifically to this piece about sorrow?
Yeah,
in sloth.
So one extreme version of sloth, what it can develop into, that we have to be actually, like self-pity, extremely aware of and radically fight against, is despair. Despair is the belief that that God's mercy is not enough to save me. That's like the most technical way of thinking of it. It's what Judas had, right? We think, his worst sin was not that he betrayed Jesus.
Right.
His worst sin is that he thought that he was beyond forgiveness.
I think I've mentioned this before, but there are priests that do reflections on this, saying that Peter and Judas' sin were the same. It's how they chose to like deal with their sin.
Right. So the most extreme form of it's actually, some would argue, it's the unforgivable sin against the Holy Spirit, because it's the only sin where it causes a person not to ask forgiveness. It's the only type of sin. I can't ask for forgiveness because there would be no point. It wouldn't do anything. God can't save me. And so obviously that's serious, and we have to, if we're feeling that despair, that's definitely something you want to take to confession. Yeah. And like self-pity, you fight that tooth and nail. There's no room for that. You can't entertain that. There's not very much I tell people, like, don't even think about that. But that's one of them. Don't even think about that being the case. Just like, don't, there's not much you can say to someone because they're so buried.
Right.
Just reject that. And I'm going to help you reject it if they're in the confessional, right? Like, let's just reject that right now.
Is there a spiritual component to both of those where it seems more of like a what would I say, like a force pressed upon you? Like, is there like is like this something that should be considered more serious, that basically like there's something else going on in the background of your spiritual life?
It can be. Sometimes, well, I'll just say this, it can afflict even very holy people. St. Francis de Sales went through a very serious period of basically being convinced he was damned. Convinced, like beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he was belonged in hell. And this didn't really connect to anything logical. It wasn't like he was in this deep sin at the time. So it can afflict, all that to say, he fought through it, and it gave him a deep understanding of like Calvinism and stuff. That's why the Lord allowed him to experience that. But it can be because someone is so deeply in sin because that they don't know how to get out. And the answer with that is usually slowly but surely. They want like a quick fix. It's not usually going to happen that way. So like if you are deep into an addiction, right, deep into like something really terrible has happened, it's like, okay, don't expect a quick fix. It's probably not. God can do that, but it's not his usual MO in my experience. Just begin little by little. Just do a little bit better, right? That's what you should aim for. It kind of sounds
like the 12-step program too, right? Yeah. Like the whole first step, isn't it just to realize that you have a problem, right?
Well, yeah.
It's like so it starts as simple as just saying, like, the first step is just being like, I have a problem. It's kind of the same thing, right? Where you're starting slow and just being like, I have this. Like,
yeah, I would say, that's true for some. For some, they know they have a problem. And they've been trying for a long time to get out of it. For some, it's like, no, you need to understand the depths of this problem. That'll help you with the despair too. Because some people just don't know there's a way out yet. And then once they find it, they just immediately kind of pick up. Some people, though, they have been trying things and they haven't found something that's worked yet. So, but yeah, I mean, just as long as, just whatever sin you're in and whatever level of sin you're in, just not entertain the idea that God's mercy is not enough.
Right.
That's just, I don't know what to say beyond just rejecting that. Just reject it with the full force of the will.
And if you see someone, maybe you're like, like if you know someone yourself, would it be appropriate to just kind of reject that, like, out loud? I don't know. It seems like a very Protestant thing to do, but my parents do this really well. Like, sometimes they'll just be like, or my mom, she's usually pretty good about this. Like, she's like, that's not of God. Like, just... No, like she even like puts up the wall for you and is like, you can't go there. Is that helpful to do with people and your friends and your family? And
if you sense despair, yes, that's not a Protestant thing. That's just a good thing to do.
To just rebuke it.
Yeah, just to say, you have to be in a place where you know someone well to be able to say something like that to them.
Right.
But I do that in the confessional. I say, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So I have a bit more authority.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what I was wondering.
Like, no, absolutely. If you have a good friend and they're like, I'm never going to go to heaven. I'm never going to. It's like, no. Stop. You can say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's not give into that. Gotcha. Yeah. Of course you're charitable, right? But yeah, you can come against that. for sure.
And then I guess like let's end with this. If someone is growing in the spiritual life and they say, 2, 3 months, 4 months, a year comes by from this podcast and they heard it and they said, yes, I acknowledged it. Yes, I've been working on the things. Yeah. What would their life start to look like? What kind of hope, what kind of transformation will they see in their life to say, oh yes, like keep on keeping on. We're like making progress in this.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about virtue, I love virtue ethics because basically virtues are muscles of the soul. And so you work it out, it gets stronger. And you begin to choose the right thing because you like to do it. Mm-hmm. You prefer it to the wrong thing. That's what's so great about virtue. It's not always white knuckling it. At the beginning it can feel that way. But this is just, it was almost forced upon me. But here's an example, right? I went to seminary. I went to seminary at Mount Angel. It's monastic. The bells ring at 5:20 every morning, no matter what, right? You are going to wake up at 5:20 no matter what. It's so loud. At least for me. I guess there's people I've heard who can sleep through that kind of thing. I don't understand how that's possible. I wasn't always a super crazy sleeper but like I definitely didn't want to wake up at 5:20. But I woke up at 5:20 for years. I was like, I'm up. I might as well get up. Now I get up early. I don't get up at 5:20, but I do get up early because I want to.
Yeah.
No one's forcing me to get up early. I'm by myself. Nothing better happens, like, so to speak. Like, I get to pray and do all these things I like, but like, that's just virtue working. If someone's like, hey, do you want to get up at 6 or get up at 8? I'd be like, I absolutely want to get up at 6. I want to. Right?
Yeah.
So like, that's how it works. So that's the encouragement, right? Is like, and the cool thing is, so you're given 2 options, right? Pursue greatness, do this lame thing. You're like, I want greatness.
Right.
Like, you'll choose it because you want it.
Right.
So that's encouraging. Like, I'm going to be great. There's a false humility that's present among a lot of Christians that's opposed to the virtue of magnanimity, great-souledness. You should be great. You should be great. You should be excellent. You should be. That's what we're called to be. So to say like, oh no, it's like, no, that's wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I want to be great. I want to be a high saint.
And I'll end with this just because it reminds me of him. But our abbot at Belmont Abbey College in North Carolina, where I went to college, I remember one of the first talks I heard with him. He was talking about humility. Yeah. And he said, humility isn't being like, oh no, I'm not very good at that. Right. Like, I'm not a really good basketball player. Blah blah blah. That's not me. Like, no. Yeah. He said what it is saying, totally. Like, I just rocked it. Like, I'm carrying the team here. But what he says is that the important part to not go into pride is what he was saying is, but to say like, this is a gift from God. Exactly. Like, this is the gift that God has given me to do what I'm able to do. Right. And so saying not to like make God lower by saying, oh no, I'm not that great, but rather saying like, the only reason I'm great is because God has given me this gift. Exactly. So you'll choose the more excellent, if it's not just, I gave the example of getting up early, which is, some people struggle with that, but imagine like you just don't spend that much time on your phone. Like you're choosing, you're getting good at things, you're learning a language, you're learning an instrument, you're doing all these cool things instead that like are much cooler, right? Like that's good. That's more excellent, so amazing.
Well,
thank you so much for coming on today and talking about sloth. I'm glad that it's I'm really glad you pulled it into the virtues at the end. One of the things that we should strive to be, to become is a saint. Mm-hmm. And what does that do? But like I almost feel like in my like very simplistic mind, I'm like, we just got to start working on those virtues, like start checking them off, right? Yeah.
Jesus gives us the power to do that. Absolutely.
So, thank you so much for coming on the show. Yes. And if anyone would like any more information, do you have any good resources that we might be able to suggest?
Well, the only one that comes to mind, I mean, a lot of the information that I got from here is from Thomas Aquinas's article in the Summa on Sloth, and I actually couldn't tell you which one it is, but it's in there. And then as far as like great quotes about there's a lot more than the ones I gave. the Talking Back book by Evagrius. Yeah, that's a really good book, not just for sloths, but he has stuff for every vice. Verses you can memorize, quick verses that you can just talk back, literally.
I'll go ahead and put that book in the description so that people can get it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Desert Wanderers. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up as well as subscribe down below. We're produced by Salt and Light Radio, so you can find us on social platforms at Salt and Light Radio or Desert Wanderers Podcast. We produce episodes every week and we launch them for you on Wednesdays. So make sure to tune in for next week's episode and we'll see you then.